so passionate about it that you're not going to find a space where you're not going to learn.
Thank you so much for joining us here on What Canna Radio, where we take pride in bringing a dose of reality to your conversations about hemp. We are very happy to say that today's episode is brought to you by CBD Peer. Please stick around to the end of the show to learn how you can get a 15% discount on their world-class American-made CBD products. My name is Aidan Washington. I'm happy to be your host today, and now enjoy the show. Going back to that perception, right, and how do you change that perception? I mean, it's definitely happening less now when I tell people I'm in the hemp industry or I'm in the hemp space. But like just a few years ago when I would tell people I was in the hemp space, they'd be like, oh, you smoke pot? Oh, I'm not going to listen to anything you have to say, right? And that I could give them nuclear launch codes and they wouldn't care less, or they could care less. But then I started saying I was in the textile industry or I was in the fiber industry. And then if somebody really, yeah, exactly. If somebody really wanted to know like what I was doing, then we could dive into this is the specific fiber I'm using, but I'm in the fiber industry and I'm using plant fibers to manufacture these various products. I think you're right in the aspect of normalizing it, putting it into many different places. So it's not just, oh, there's hemp t-shirts, right? And that's it. And then it's just like categorized into this, and there's marijuana over here. It's seen around all these different things. So it's more normalized as like, oh, I see plastic everywhere, right? Like it's just this kind of normalized material that's, I mean, of course, plastic is even more vague because there's millions of different types of plastic. But it's kind of along those lines. And then also on the level of companies wanting to talk about this, investors are still a little bit kind of wary of it because, the perceptions are just kind of not quite there, not really up to spec where they should be. But companies even like branding as we're making a hemp product, and again, as you said, like it just asks for questions, right? You're just expecting that you're going to get a whole bunch of questions of, oh, what is the hemp? Can I smoke my jacket? I mean, that's happening less and less nowadays, but it's still out there as much as I wish it wasn't. And I mean, like even at times when I specifically would jump from hemp, it was almost like talking about the internet when the internet was first coming out. It's like, oh yeah, this is this magical thing that can do all these great stuff. But bringing the reality of this is a product, and oh, we just happen to be able to make it out of hemp, and hemp has all these benefits and ecological footprint and everything, right? Versus being like, here's hemp and we can make all these things, right? It's definitely, yeah, starting with the product and kind of working back, it can help to change people's perceptions a lot more than trying to say that this plant can do a billion different things, or that 25,000 number, which is I find it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, I'm sure we can make 25,000 different products out of it, but the way I kind of look at it is we can make hemp plastic, and then we can make millions of different products out of hemp plastic. And so, like, there's a million products they can make, right? And so it's just all, it's all kind of crazy. And so, yeah, exactly. And so from the experience that you've had when you worked with your brother's mother's friend that had the fashion company, were most of the products hemp fiber mixed in with it, or was hemp fiber like the sole material that was going with it?
Oh, so no, actually never used hemp.
Okay.
That just used all different types of fibers. So they did denim, they did cotton, they did silk, synthetic fibers, everything. But it was very slow process. So very hands-on. Nothing was, everything, even a lot of their textiles were hand cut. So now today you use a very like machine cut, so it cuts everything. Lots of them were hand cut. Everything was very focused on the production of it, so I was able to see the steps. But Absolutely. This was the steps of producing a garment. So I never really saw the steps behind that roll of textile that came in.
Gotcha. Interesting. You saw the production of the product.
Mm-hmm. So I was more interested in the other aspect, which was the product, like where is this textile coming from? Because I see that there is a lot of waste, and this is even if they were a high-end fashion designer, which their textiles were much more expensive, there's obviously waste. They obviously tried to reduce it so much because it's a very, very expensive textiles that they buy, their patterns, everything. They were very conscious of that, which a t-shirt company with a few meters that come from each, that who cares? We just buy in bulk, we produce in bulk. they don't really care about the amount, they wouldn't really care about the amount of waste that they do as a whole, compared to something where you're buying such a high-end textile. And so although I saw waste, I was like, well, let's keep on looking into it. And that's when I had the opportunity in the undergraduate research. They literally were like, we're interested in you starting a research, you spearheading it, we're guiding you. That's with Dr. Paquita and Dr. Pazur. They guided me through the whole process, but they were like, what are you interested in? And I was like, well, I had an internship in the fashion industry. I'm really interested in that. And they're like, okay, look into it. And then I was like, okay, but I'm not really interested in a research paper on how to produce the best t-shirt with, I don't know. I didn't really think about much about that aspect. I really thought about it, okay, but I remember that textiles, that I kept on seeing all these big rolls of textiles. Let's look into that. And that's where I found all the statistics about the industry. And I was like, we need to look into the sustainability of it. Let's choose, as I mentioned, the textile part. Let's choose what we want to find, what we want to propose. And so that's where I found hemp.
Gotcha. And so from that little bit of experience, then does the actual the input material in terms of like the whole supply chain to getting to that roll is varying and different between each material, but once it gets to the roll and it goes into production, other than like maybe comfort wise, is there really any difference between the different materials in terms of how they're used with the different products that are manufactured?
That depends. So the plant as a whole, the fiber as a whole, they have differences. So hemp fiber does pass all of like the standards. I had like all of the data of I presented all of how it passes the standards, because you do need standards to be able to use fibers, but at the same time, they do have differences. So hemp fiber has more reaction towards sunlight with the dyeing process. So for example, if you notice, people usually try to cover their sofas or their things when they see light, or like when out in the sunlight or everything, because they usually change colors. All of your sofas change colors and everything. So from that end, it does have it's easier when it's dyed for it to have a change in color because of the properties of the fiber. And when I said it depends, is because the production of the fiber, if you produce it in a specific way, it could be very soft, but if it's produced in a very specific way with a lot of chemicals or a lot of strong processes, because we do not have an optimal way of doing it. But cotton is known for being the softest, the very comfort material, and hemp is not there yet. So that's one of the biggest obstacles, because the easiest way of producing it in the straightforward way, it will produce a very robust.
Rough. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And that's one of the limitations, but it does have potential. It's not like a limitation where you're stuck. That's the boundary of hemp. We can't push it. Hemp can be pushed to be produced in a better way, but there is a balance. If we want it to be as soft as cotton, how are we going to get there, and at what cost? At what cost environmentally, at what cost economically? And so that's why you would see at first, when hemp was being introduced as a fiber, that it was being merged or mixed with cotton, because cotton's properties are very soft. And so if you have a mix with hemp, then it like leverages the softness of cotton, and it kind of masks that robustness or toughness that hemp fiber does have. So there is that limitation. But in terms of, like, for example, stretchiness, everything, all fibers have different properties. But essentially, it just has to be wearable for customers to wear on a daily basis that is uncomfortable. And at some point, we can get to massively produced way of having it very comfortable and having it just as cotton in many ways. But at the same time, we don't want it to be just as cotton, because all fibers have their different qualities. Silk is very soft, but very like soothing or smooth. Cotton does not produce that same experience. Cotton is very stretchy. Cotton reacts differently when you put it into the dryer. All fibers have different specifications, but we want to reach that level where For example, if somebody tells me, oh, you have a silk shirt or a cotton shirt, I'm not really like, oh, but the silk shirt is so rough, I'm not going to put that. Like, I prefer cotton. Most people really don't have like a strong preference between fibers unless it's for aesthetics purposes, just because the texture of them when presented to customers usually is because they know that customers will be able to use this comfortably. And so that's what we want to get with hemp. A lot of companies have been able to produce it that way, but generally, as an overarching process, hemp is usually today being presented as more of a rough fiber.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. I've got some hemp shirts and hemp pants, and they're definitely very very rough material. I've seen like hemp bed sheets too, and they're cozy, but they're definitely not on par with cotton. And so, kind of along those lines, I mean, you may not have gone really in depth into like the cottonization process, which is also just interesting. We comparing it to cotton so much is we're cottonizing the hemp, make it softer versus just softening it. What kind, like, is it primarily just chemical processes at this point in time, or are there also like mechanical processes out there that can help to make it softer?
Oh, what I mean is like there are obviously mechanical processes that will be able to have that fiber have a smoother feel to it, and that also is based on the spinning of it, how it's produced in that way. So it's not only chemicals, but definitely chemicals are a huge factor into it. But there's also opportunities of doing it mechanically as well, of having a better product. But at the same time, I believe that making it unique is also important. So not having it as like, this is the substitute of cotton and it's identical, because no fiber is identical to you. Like, silk is not presented as the substitute of cotton. No, nothing's really presented that way. It's just a new fiber. And so
Gotcha.
it does have better qualities in some cases than cotton. For example, it has better UV resistance. But for example, as I presented, it's more sensitive to light when it's colored, and so it has a more higher impact to color change
Interesting.
than
So
cotton.
it's just more likely that if you're in the sun, it will like fade in the sun versus.
Yeah, but that's also more of a concern with like furniture, because
Gotcha,
you
'cause it's
really,
sitting.
yes, you really are not literally like sunbathing in your shirt, and people don't really notice it. You buy your white T-shirt, and you usually don't notice that that color changed unless you have like stains. But all your clothing actually changes colors a lot based on wash, based on drying, but you don't really notice it because it's all the same color. So it's it's white, but it definitely changed color, and so you don't really notice it in that. But with furniture, you do notice it more because of the parts that are covered. So if you flip like let's say the cushion, you'll see a difference in color, and so people will notice that more compared to clothing that if you expose a T-shirt to a lot of sunlight, it will change color, but all of it is going to change color. So it's not like like blotchiness. When I mean impact to color, it's not a blotchy effect per se.
Gotcha. Interesting. And so yeah, so kind of like, since we did kind of touch on like silk, for example, that's another fiber that's used in production. Do you think that hemp will completely replace cotton and other textiles out there, or do you think it will more so just kind of augment other materials out there, or maybe become like the majority material, or like where do you think it may sit in like, say, the next 20 years or something?
With my experience with my first internship, as I mentioned, the production of a lot of garments is really solely based on what material you use. So if you want to produce jeans, you're going to use denim, right? You want that denim feel because you want that jean. But if you're going to produce a very high, fancy dress, you're not going to use it with a clunky, very heavy. So whatever a company is designing, the textile, like what they choose as their textiles, is really dependent on what they want to produce. If they want to produce a high-end dress, they're not going to be choosing a textile that looks heavy, that doesn't flow. They're going to choose silk over another product. and or if they want something of a fluffier effect, they're going to use tulle. Like that really affects what they're going to use. But with basics, so you can produce a basic silk t-shirt, you can produce a basic cotton t-shirt. So I think that in the more fast fashion production process is where it could actually gain the most ground, because it's usually producing basics. And a higher end fashion designer will purposely use hemp with purpose of it presenting it as a more sustainable alternative, using all of its qualities to best design something so it will hold more the ruffle, or so they definitely think about that more. But a fast fashion will produce it, they'll produce a t-shirt, and they don't care if it's silk or cotton. It's going to be the cheapest version, or it's the one that's in style, or they choose their fibers based and their fabrics based on what they want to emit, how they want to design it. But the basics really, hemp can gain traction in that. So I think that the most important part is being able to present it as a massively produced textile. So not having it be presented as we can only produce this much and it's very limited, and we need that innovation, we need that big production to be able to get traction and gain space. But I don't think it's gonna remove other textiles at all, because you still want that elegant dress that's gonna flow nicely, or you still want that textile that's gonna hold the ruffle. Or for example, there are certain textiles that are best for patterns, and you're still gonna need all of those textiles. But the biggest one is, where is the majority, like what are we majority using, like majority of the textiles being used, and what is it? And so currently is cotton in the natural fibers area, and potentially and hopefully hemp takes a leading role and is able to overpass that. But definitely I don't think that it's going to be like the solution for all is we're all going to just be wearing head to toe hemp. That's not going to happen, because we like fashion. We don't wear, well, most people, but we don't wear the same. Everybody doesn't wear t-shirt, pants every single day the same thing. We need variety, and the industry provides with that. But the basics, everything that we need in basics, and that's what cotton is used for, basics. When I mean basics, is basic clothing. Cotton is used for basic clothing. That's where hemp can grab most of the grasp of it, and that's what's most produced, so it's even better. So if it's mostly companies, like you produce majority t-shirts, no company is going to produce thousands of silk dresses. Yes, there is, but it's not the main product that people consume, and most people consume the basics. And so if hemp gets into that industry and keeps on going towards the top, we're able to get more traction. But I don't think it's going to reduce. It's not going to like completely consume the industry.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's we humans like variety. Having a completely, I mean, even though hemp can do lots of things, it would be kind of a boring world if everything was made out of hemp. It'd also be terrible for the environment too, because I mean, you do want to have variety of plants growing, and you don't want to have complete monoculture everywhere. So that's, and then also, like as you said, kind of again, going back to, it's not a special crop. It's we want to make it a commodity crop, right? We want it to be just exactly a staple, just an input into industry that is in a lot of industries, and particularly in textiles, as you said, going into like just the basics clothes, right? I mean, of course, you're going to have those hemp products, or the products that they're using hemp fiber for maybe that one particular part of the dress or whatever. That's kind of the statement more than the actual material itself, right? And so yeah, no, I agree with that. Having the goal is to go commodity wise again as that staple material, right? We want it to be my goal is to make it the largest key resource around the globe, right? As going into whatever industries it can be going into. Because that will also just grow the hemp as its own product. It'll also help farmers. It'll be a great story to be able to tell, help the environment, right? All these factors that kind of play into it after the economics are taken into account, which is just again, it's just phenomenal that as it stands today, with all the bottlenecks that are in place, it's pretty much cheaper, better environmentally. It's there's just so many factors that are already playing in its favor, that again will kind of drive that economic force behind it to put more investment into it, put more research into it, put more infrastructure and supply chains into it, to again get it to that scaled state that it can really like think about supplying these places, right? Because like while you could sell the hemp fiber cloth or whatever into a smaller boutique shop or operation that's doing handmade, when you're talking about scaled, you need to have mass production, right? You need to have a lot of stuff being produced all at once. You can't give them 10 yards of hemp and be like, here, make some t-shirts out of it, right? You actually have to have hundreds or thousands or potentially millions of yards of hemp to even consider doing that. While more clinical research is needed before we can make any medical claims, CBD has shown to greatly reduce inflammation, which can assist with ailments such as arthritis, chronic pain, and even anxiety. However, with so many CBD brands out there, it can be hard to distinguish which brands can offer top quality products while remaining affordable. Well, thanks to today's sponsor, CBD Pure, we can bring you just that. With decades of experience in the supplement industry, CBD Pure's team is offering What Can a Radio listeners a 15% discount to their American-made, high-quality, and yet affordable products. In fact, they are so confident you will love their products that they are offering a 90-day money-back guarantee. Just use the discount code WCD at checkout or click on the link in the description to get your 15% discount. We hope you enjoy their products just as much as we do, and now back to the show. That's a really good goal, and again, going back to that whole aspect of hemp is just amplified to this like high level, that this platform that it could never quite reach. But again, stepping back to just making the commodity products, right? And then the commodity products, it's a larger industry, so you have more environmental impact, you have more economical impact. And as you said, like if companies their goal is really, I mean, especially the large scale companies, they want to increase their margins and decrease their overhead cost. And so the cheaper material that they can use, the better. And then if it just happens to be more environmentally sustainable, then that's just a great storyline. Exactly. And so to kind of start wrapping up, we're not going to wrap up quite yet, but to kind of start wrapping up, for people that are thinking about getting into the hemp space, or maybe they have a business in another sector and they're thinking about using hemp for like fashion or textiles or whatever, what advice would you give to somebody when they're kind of first starting to look into it versus like necessarily being ingrained in the plant as some people are?
I would say I'll speak to my experience as I started off without being like a hemp aficionado or whatever. I started off just researching what it is, learning more about it. You do not need to go in depth in the weeds of every single aspect of hemp and knowing everything, but just know about it, learn about it. It's a new plant, so you're not conditioned to, it's not innate in people to be like, oh, that's hemp, I know hemp, because people see in movies, for example, cotton, they see cotton plants or they go through cotton fields and people know, or like any product, corn, you know how it looks like, and so you could identify a cornfield. And so it's not something natural in your environment that most people have. And so just looking into it, and that's where I'm going to sell my research paper a little bit, that it is a great just base starting point for the textile industry. And it also provides with a lot of data about the plant itself in the introduction and the background research of the plant. But furthermore, after just learning a little bit about it, reaching out locally, there are especially in the United States, there are so many different communities that are growing of hemp that are definitely just pushing the product and the plant to grow. And if you're interested in growing it, I bet there's so many people around you that are too. And just reaching out, you can do a quick Google search or find someone that might know something about it. Facebook has, I guess, some groups, or just looking into different organizations state-wise of industrial hemp, contacting them. I guarantee so many people are welcoming in, and everybody's so eager in this community of teaching other people. They're not very like, oh, I know something, I'm not going to tell anybody. Everybody's so open because it's such a welcoming community, because everybody's so passionate about it, that you're not going to find a space where you're not going to learn and people are not going to welcome you. And then have a structured, okay, let's say, oh, I think hemp is a great product. What can I do about it? Like, what should I produce if I have a small business? So if you have like a textile business, like t-shirts, you have a small boutique. And if you're not, like some boutiques produce their own clothing, some boutiques buy clothing. So if you're buying clothing, you can talk to your suppliers and say, hey, do you produce any hemp clothing? Do you know any companies that produce? Look into that. And then just buy a couple of them to sell or just for you to sample. See it, like just go about and like just research a little bit about everything. See if you like it, see if you don't. Look for more things. And if you produce your own garments and you're trying to find textiles, reach out, because there's people that have farms that are they're just trying out like you did. I reached out and I just saw that you were trying out, you're just doing a trial. And people are so welcoming of, and you were very welcoming of showing everything and being like, oh, this is what I did, this is what I'm going to do. And you were just starting off with that. I believe that was your first, but I might be wrong.
Second year. But yeah, very early on.
Yeah, very early on. And you're like, come on, I'll show you. And I went with one of the authors, Sergio Puquito. We went 2-hour car ride there, learned all about what you did. You gave us a lot of contacts, and this is where I'm at right now. I'm giving pretty much a podcast about what have we found. We met like a year ago, kind of.
Yeah. Yep.
And so it's a new industry that it's not something that you're unable to tap into. And if you're going to produce your own garments, order one roll of hemp and see what you can produce. See if people are interested. Put it on your display. It's like hemp. And if you see that it grows, then just keep on growing your brand. And definitely if you're ecologically aware of things and want to sell that and want that image for your company as well, then you have to make those decisions as well of taking that first step. And at the same time, I'm a firm believer of everything happens for a reason. I took a lot of first steps to learn about it, but at the same time, some people took their first steps towards me on learning what I have found, and it's just a cycle. And so if you're welcoming on telling someone, oh, this is my project, they'll be like, oh my gosh, I know of someone that just produced this. You should contact them. And it just keeps on going. So just don't be afraid of taking the first step. There's a lot of communities throughout the whole United States that have very strong, very passionate people and very, very knowledgeable people about the product. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just get some hands-on work, right? I mean, so I didn't grow this year just because I decided I needed to really focus all of my attention in building up processing, right? Because we can grow thousands and thousands of acres, but until we actually exactly where's it going to go, right? And the farmer isn't going to be very happy if it's not able to be sold off into something, right? But just like the fact of putting the seeds in the ground, right? I mean, there was papers I read earlier on. A lot of them were not necessarily anecdotal evidence, but just evidence that, as you said earlier, just wasn't really like realistic in terms of A, we're using genetics that aren't grown for this area, B, we're using new practices, we don't really know how to grow it properly, we don't necessarily know the density we need to plant it at, right? All that kind of stuff. But it was just the amount of learning that I got done just putting that for the 2 years of growing it was incredible. But as you said, like just do a little bit of research, right? Don't necessarily go too far down every single rabbit hole because there's billions of rabbit holes. Yeah, exactly. There's billions of rabbit holes to fall down. But when you do find that one thing that's like, oh, this is kind of intriguing, maybe I could use it for the business I'm in, or maybe I could try to get into a business or something, or work in research, whatever it might be, right? It's just a very exciting plant to work with and kind of get involved with, right? You don't necessarily want to fall too deep into the community because you can kind of get lost in this bubble of hemp is so great, hemp is so wonderful, praise hemp, like bow down to hemp, but at the same time, it's the aspect of like there is so many things it can do. And so to wrap up, right before we do, if you want to share your contact information or a way that people can get a hold of you, how can people reach out to you to learn more about the research that you did and maybe the research that you're thinking about doing in the future?
Yes. So you can find me in LinkedIn, which is more of like the professional site, under Ana Gabriela Duque. And then you could also, I have also shared I don't know if you can share the paper, and just provides my contact information in RPI as well as my personal email.
I'll probably share the abstract. I don't know if I can share the full document. Unfortunately, that link is now outdated after the.
But actually, we published it in ResearchGate. So now it's open to the public as well. I can send you that link as well. So
that'd be great.
We provided that information because we did notice that I think it was like 90 days that they gave us for the free publishing article. So we do have that there, and that's all my contact. Like there, they also have like my email information, which I can also share with you. It's my name, Ana Gabriela Duque, with an S at the end. So Ana Gabriela Duque S@gmail.com. And then you can find me also on Instagram as Ana Gabriela Duque. That's how we communicate, and it's pretty easy. You can, if you're interested in hemp, you can also just send me a message, and I'll definitely, in any of the platforms, and I'll definitely respond.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Ana. It's a pleasure to learn more about the research that you're doing. And I look forward to maybe in another year or two, after you've written another paper, talking more about that and just kind of delving into what you've been doing in hemp. But thank you very much, and have yourself a wonderful day.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. I was really excited sharing a little bit of what I know and what I've been able to research. And I hope that this is useful for other people to gain more knowledge and build upon that, because I'm definitely not a know-it-all in hemp. I just researched about it for a couple of years, but I have so much learning to do. And so I really like communities that just build upon knowledge.
Absolutely. Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us here on What Canna Radio, where we bring a dose of reality to your conversations about hemp every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. If you enjoyed what you heard, please smash that like button below for our YouTube overlords. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel so you can be the first to know the secrets we reveal. If you need another dose of reality right this moment, check out the video up here, or if you want to see what YouTube has to offer you, check out the videos over here or down below. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a mind-expanding day.